Michael said, my name's Tony Barry, and the reason I'm here, and it was a privilege last year, and it's the same this year, to be in the company of people who step outside the law to be able to offer their children some relief from the medical conditions they have that are not being serviced by a so-called medical fraternity. I myself have been using cannabis oil for prostate cancer and also melanoma. Now, I'm not sure whether it's just that that's doing it, but I've had these for 14 years. I'm still alive, still working. I was told I had 6 months if I didn't get chemotherapy or radiation into me. That was 14 years ago. I chose not to go down that road, and I found out that there's a wealth of material available if you look for it. So obviously you people here are thinkers. You've come along because you want to hear what's on offer and be able to take home, hopefully, some hope, and also some information that may help you with people you know, loved ones you have that have a condition that may benefit from the use of cannabis oil. So I'd like to introduce our panel first up, and I'll get them to just raise their hands because they're not in the order of my sheet. So I'll just get them to raise their hands as they announce their names. We've got Carol Ireland, she's the CEO of Epilepsy Action. You'll be hearing more from her. Lynn and Malcolm from Tasmania, they have a son with epilepsy who's benefited from cannabis oil. Michelle Whitelaw, also a son with epilepsy from Queensland. Michael Stoopman. Michael's got a story to tell, I'll leave him to do that. And Michael Lambert. Michael has a daughter with epilepsy, and he just showed me a photo of her at school. I'm going to let him tell the story, but I'll just say this. Cannabis and Vegemite sandwiches. He will elaborate on that. Okay, guys. And we've got Rebecca from Queensland, who is the partner of a veteran from Afghanistan who suffers from PTSD. Rebecca was here last year with her husband. He's speaking later, so he's not on the panel today. But you'll be hearing from all these people, and you'll be hearing their story and also seeing some of the magnificent achievements that have come about. So, Jenny, did I forget Jenny? Jenny, I'm sorry. Please give Jenny a special hand. Yeah. Thanks, Jenny. And thanks for, doesn't write too well on thanks, man. Baking paper. Oh, is that your lucky number, Jenny? 7? Jenny, okay. Sorry, folks, just talk amongst yourselves for a second. Okay, and Jenny's from Medical Cannabis Medicine. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, I like that. Yes. Okay, so we're into it. And first up, would you put your hands together and welcome Carol Ireland from Epilepsy Action. She's the CEO of Epilepsy Action.
Thanks, Tony. And maybe just a clarification at the beginning. I'm probably the one that doesn't step outside the law. However, I've been told I walk a very fine line. I'm the MD and CEO of Epilepsy Action. I have been for 11 years, where for most of that 11 years our focus was on epilepsy advice and epilepsy education, training in the use of particular anti-epileptic rescue drugs and so on. The last 2 or 3 years I'm sort of wondering whether I'm the CEO of the Medicinal Cannabis and Epilepsy Association, which just gives you some idea of how many of our consumers are calling to talk to us about cannabis. A couple of disclosures. I actually, and please don't boo, I actually sit on the Australian Council for the Use of Medicinal Cannabis at the federal level. I also sit on the steering committee of the New South Wales trials, in medicinal cannabis, and I'm also on the advisory board of the Lambert initiative run out of Sydney University. So by that I demonstrate that I am doing my best to work with the legal and regulatory and research authorities in the field of medicinal cannabis. A few years ago, when I first heard about cannabis as a treatment option for epilepsy, I poo-pooed it like everybody else that I knew around me. Our nurses were horrified, you know, we only knew negative things about cannabis, not good things about cannabis. And just to put this in context with our clients, 800,000 of us in Australia will be diagnosed with epilepsy in our lifetime. Around about 60 to 70% of those people will get reasonable seizure control with the available anti-epileptic medications. That doesn't take into account the incredible side effects they might also get, but they will get reasonable seizure control. Quality of life will still vary a great deal. So what changed for me? And it was interesting, I was actually with a group of people here last night, and one of them was facilitating a focus session in a sacred circle and asked, why are we here? So I sat thinking about, why am I here? Given that I'm usually in a suit and a frock and you know, in meetings, and now this year and last year I've been in Nimbin. What changed for me a couple of years ago is I got to know some of the people who were using medicinal cannabis. They're still clients of ours, you know, they're people with epilepsy, they need our help, they need our support. And over those couple of years I've got to know particularly well Michelle White, Michael, Lynn, you know, we've all got to know each other. And I've heard their stories of what's happened with their children, in some cases adult children, in some cases younger children. And I've seen the befores and afters. I have watched children who were not mobile, not verbal, really not progressing in life, and those relentless seizures doing more and more damage to their already compromised brains. And if I were a parent in that situation, would I try anything I possibly could? Of course I would. And seeing those kids and hearing the stories from these parents, I developed a bit of a mantra, and you guys have heard me say it a few times, and I'm going to say it again. Loving parents don't lie. There is no reason why they would break the law, give their children cannabis, and then say that it's had a really good effect. It's helped control the seizures, it's helped improve their quality of life. Sometimes it's not improving the seizures, sometimes it's just about quality of life. And in virtually every instance, you know, I've seen that to be the case. So I can't be a medicinal cannabis advocate, not with the hat I wear with Epilepsy Action Australia, but I'm absolutely convinced that this is a treatment option for our kids. And I've taken a personal viewpoint that it doesn't matter what particular course people are taking, how they're accessing that cannabis. To me personally, they need to get it, and they need to get it now, because their children, their loved ones are suffering. So I will support the you know, the regulatory, the medical, the research. I'll support that, and I'm involved in that, and I will also support these people sitting up here on the stage that need as much help as anyone. They're in dreadfully difficult circumstances. And when I sat and reflected last night, as I was asked to do on why I was here, I thought about a range of reasons why people are involved in the medicinal cannabis movement. And they're all over the country, and they're all approaching us, and in some cases it is monetary, in some cases it's political, you know, in some cases I think it's fear. But I'm sitting here because these people need our support. And you know, we need to do whatever we can to give relief and help to those that are suffering right now. It's not, in my view, it's not ethical to know that there is something that can help and then withhold it from people. So thank you, happy to take any questions later, but that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Carol. Carol Ireland from Epilepsy Action. Now, next up we've got Lynn and Malcolm, who were also here last year, and have you got
that's just coming. We just wanted to show a really short video. Jeremy, he's 26. He's had uncontrolled epilepsy since he was 6 years old as a result of suspected viral encephalitis. And as you saw it, his treatments all failed. They all came with serious side effects. When we decided to trial cannabis for Jeremy, he was on 3 anticonvulsants. The latest one was called Vimpat, and the neurologist suggested we increase it to target dose for weight, which we did. We always did what the neurologist said. We increased his dose. It was just 200 milligrams twice a day. And Jeremy started jumping out of moving vehicles. He went insane. He was in a drug-induced psychosis from an anticonvulsant. The neurologist wanted to add a sedative into the mix, and we said, no, look, he's been medicated enough. We're going to try cannabis, and we did. Jeremy isn't seizure-free, but his quality of life is so much better now. He's not suffering those toxic events. We would give him his anticonvulsants and he'd start vomiting. He'd have blurred vision. He couldn't walk straight. He kept falling over. So what it's meant for him to be on cannabis is that we've been able to reduce about 95% of his anticonvulsant medications. So he's so much healthier, so much happier. What I really wanted to say, one thing I find really important and I think parents should know, is please keep engaging your doctors. Don't make a disconnect with your treating specialist. You need them to help you. You need them to follow your child or your loved one. So keep the communication open and don't wait. Don't wait, because if your child gets to 26 years old, the chances are that you'll never be able to stop their seizures, and the damage will be done. You know, the damage is not, we can't fix it. So please don't wait, and please speak to your doctors. We'd be happy to chat with anybody. We home grow Jeremy's meds, so we'd be happy to chat with anybody afterwards.
I just want to ask Malcolm, as a father of a young man, all the dreams you may have had for your boy when he was growing up and what you had to contend with as a consequence of the medication. The doctors doing the best they knew how at the time, what was it that made you decide to look at cannabis oil?
Just Jeremy become uncontrollable, and we'd seen good, we'd seen good results for cannabis, and
thanks.
That was a hard question.
It was, but this is a heartfelt situation. You know, you've got people who are trying to deal with a condition that their children have, and there's a criminal conspiracy out there that is making it almost impossible for people to deal within the law. And fortunately, we've got people like Carol who are working within the system, and she's bringing her knowledge and understanding into their consciousness. So she's bringing that into the conversation because she's been witnessing it. And it was just that, Malcolm, I just didn't want to see you sitting there without something to say, because I knew you had plenty to say, but it's all heartfelt. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Now we've got Michelle Whitelaw. Michelle is from Queensland and she has a son with epilepsy. She also was here last year.
Hi everyone, we're just going to play a short video.
My number today is 876. I am Sai. I am 11. I live in Brisbane. I was born healthy. In January 2010, I got sick. I have big seizures. The doctor said I have epilepsy. I have 3 weird types. I don't remember much growing up. I was in the hospital a lot. I have a lot of tests. I wanted to go to school, play, and have a lot of fun, but I was too sick. Pills just made me more sick. 35 pills a day. I got a chair with wheels. Food went in a tube to my belly. My head always hurt, and I had to wear a helmet. I have had a lot of ambulance rides, and a lot of people saved my life. One day, my mom said to my daughter that a plant might help me. They laughed, and my mom got sad. My mom didn't sleep much because she had to keep me safe. My mom went on TV a lot with me asking for help. She didn't want me to die. My mom spoke to a lot of important people, but no one listened. But she kept trying, like a lot of our friends. A lot of kids like me die every day from pills that didn't work. My life began in December 2014. My head started hurting. I woke up. I feel so good. I can talk. I can walk. I can eat. I can play. I can write. I can now read. I am alive. Cannabis medicine helped me stay alive. Tony Bauer made my medicine. He cared about me. I am season 3 now. My mom and I are criminals. That shit is crazy. I am Chai. I am 11. I want the Lord to be changed. Can be healthy so like everyone me. Can be healthy like me.
I am Chai Wino. I am Chai Wino. 876 days on campus. 6 days on campus. 600 days with no seasons. Days with no seasons. 1, 2, 3.
Michelle, please.
That's just I suppose an overlay of what we've experienced. As Carol mentioned before, very grateful for the support Carol provides not only to our family but to Lynn and Mel and every other family out there. We feel listened and heard, and I'm really grateful for that. As the video stated, Tony Bauer makes Jai's medicine for free. We do not pay. Jai is now, he was on 35 tablets a day, having up to 500 seizures a day. We had 36 EEGs on pharmaceutical, and there was never any change. We've had 4 EEGs to date on cannabis medicine. 2 of the syndromes have gone, and the EEGs are now clear. So I suppose my point why I'm here is that we have worked with our doctors. I have worked hard to educate them prior to administering cannabis, during the period of starting and still now. I'm not an expert on cannabis. I'm not a neurologist. I'm just a mum who knows her son. But to think that I know better than one or the other is wrong. I find a lot of families hearing stories like Jai's and even Lynn and Mal's and everybody else that's in the media. And cannabis is hope, and cannabis is a medicine and should be treated like one. But when you've got complex children on pharmaceuticals, adding cannabis to that can be quite scary. And without the research and without the specialists on board and speaking to RNs and connecting to the right people, it can be dangerous. Like, in our situation with paediatrics, you simply cannot wean your own medications because you choose to do so as a parent. If anything goes pear-shaped, it's actually a criminal offence to do that on top of cannabis, and that's where children's services, etc., do get involved. So, parents, I can't express enough, know your pharmaceuticals, research. There's no excuse why you can't. If you can be on social media, and if you've got time to sit in the bath or have a shower or what have you, you have 2 minutes to actually get on the internet and connect, or get on the internet and know what your child's actually taking, because cannabis alone, you really don't know without testing what is in that bottle, and throwing that on top of pharmaceuticals, you're stepping outside the box to save your child's life. You need it to go as smoothly as possible. So, thank you.
Michelle, can I ask, are you a single mum?
No, my husband actually works for federal government.
Okay. Well, it's good to have a man on the inside. Maybe he can do something about it. But just for one, I mean, the idea of 500 seizures a day, it just is beyond...
I was shocked at that. It was probably one of our first media interviews, either 2012 or 13, that one of our neurologists agreed to meet with, I think it was one of the Sunday night or Today Tonight, and they actually worked out with the EEGs how often Jai was seizuring, and I actually found that out once that media actually aired that he was having up to 500 seizures a day, and Jai was, because of the 3 rare epilepsy syndromes, we were automatically on our own, even though we had, you know, Carol and the organisation, but a lot of the kids are rare, and in our case, we already didn't have that another family. Like I've come across some families in Australia with 1 or 2 Jai syndromes, but never 3, not even around the world yet. And I work with a lot of the families overseas in communicating and supporting them. But it's scary, it really is. And you just, you know, you're in the fight for your life. And as Lynn said before, don't wait. Like I suggest anyone that has an epilepsy diagnosis, research cannabis, research the pharmaceuticals, and have the conversation with your doctor, because doing it solo is scary. It's just not okay. It's not sensible. It's not practical, and you don't want to make your child or your son or daughter worse. You want to save their life.
Thanks very much, Michelle. Thank you. Next up, we've got Michael Stoopman. Michael has a story to tell, and I'll let him do just that.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up because I need to see the images behind me because I'm going to talk to them. Okay. All right. I'm going to talk about 3 different things. One is my own journey. The second one is to the community of Nimbin. And the third one might be about some knowledge that we may be severely lacking. I, in May 2014, was diagnosed with a squamous cell carcinoma on the top of my forehead here, a little red spot. And the doctor put a little tube in there, did a biopsy, came back a squamous cell carcinoma. And then a couple of months later, they gave me the Voldemort mark there, the Zorro mark in plastic oncology, and took it out. By the time he did the biopsy, it would have been about 4 mil in size. When they operated, it was about 25 mil. So it got very aggressive after it was cut into for the biopsy. So at that time, I thought I'd go down that route because I knew that Cansema, or black soul, was illegal. It had been for years. The vets used to have it, and they can't get it anymore. So I thought, well, let's cut it out. And they cut it out with clear margins. I had to go back after 6-7 weeks. I didn't understand why, but they said, well, we want to examine you and see if there's any residual effects. And I said, no, it's a very clean wound and it's healing up nicely. They still insisted I come in, which was lucky to some degree, I suppose, because they palpitated me and found a lump in my lymphatic node in my left of my neck. And they started giving me some scans and some ultrasounds and decided that I had cancer in my lymph node. They took 2 biopsies, did one on the spot, and one went to the lab. And then I had to sit down with others, and a team of 10 oncologists walked around and examined you. They looked at your teeth, they stuck tubes up your nostrils and examined everything to see if they could see if the cancer had moved anywhere else and what their diagnosis and prognosis was. So they decided that the best thing for me was to cut me open from my left eye down to my jaw, across here, down into my neck and across my shoulder, and take out all the flesh and take out the saliva glands and the lymphatic nodes. It cut through 3 nerves, which means I wouldn't be speaking today. I'd have limited use of my left shoulder, and the other nerve would just give me a general palsy around the face. And I said, if I do that, if I go through that operation, what's the procedure? They said, well, you'll be in hospital for 2 weeks. You'll go home for 6 weeks while the wounds are healing up. And they're going to be quite extensive. You're going to look a bit funny because all your tissue's gone. And then when you're going to come back to hospital and be radiated for 6 weeks. I said, if I do all that, what's my lifespan? They said, the average lifespan is 5 years. I said, what's the minimum? Well, we've had people die 2 months after the operation. I said, what's the maximum? They said, well, it drops off quickly after 5 years. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, at 7 years, you've got 2 or 3% survival, and 8 years, hardly anything. So I said, what you're offering me is death from 2 months to 8 years. And they said, yes. And we can schedule you in next week. Now, next slide. Yeah. So, what I'm going to go through these slides, and I'm going to warn you, they're going to get worse, and they're going to become very graphic. And underneath your seats, you might find a vomit bag you might need, because I'm told that they're pretty horrific. So that's the lump in my left neck there. It started to grow. I decided, against all advice, including my GP, who was a wonderful man, that I wouldn't go through the operation, the radiation, etc., because quality of life after operation could be severely bad, severely worse than what they imagined, because they could have to go back and do more operations or chemo and more radiation. So I said, they're offering me death, I choose life. And I've helped out a couple of people before with cancer, so I arrogantly thought I could take care of this cancer. I didn't realize how aggressive neck and head cancers were. So I did everything that people do. You know, you have wheatgrass, you have a highly alkaline diet. I was in a far infrared sauna every day to detox. I was eating all the right foods to create alkalinity in my body. I was taking all kinds of herbs and supplements I could find out that had evidence base from around the world. You name it, I tried it. And also knew that with every cancer in people, there is an underlying anger. People may not be aware of it, but they have a deep-seated anger somewhere. So I needed to clean that out as well. So I went into a mental discipline to try and be loving to everybody, never mind what they may have done. And, you know, at the end, I ended up loving Hitler. You know, it just doesn't matter who it was, just heartfelt good thoughts to everybody. And when I did that, that tumor you can see there disappeared overnight almost. I had an ultrasound. All this is medical records. I had an ultrasound, a standing ultrasound from my GP to get whenever I wanted to, because he wanted to monitor it. He was still saying, get the operation if you can't control it. So it was out of control, it was growing. And the next day, I got in to the radiologist who had been seeing me regularly for about 6 months, every 3-4 weeks. And they looked at it and they said, they called another radiologist in and brought up the other slides from previous visits. And they said, we can't see a scar, so you had no operation, so you've had radiation. I said, no, I've had no radiation, nothing. They said, how did you fix this? I said, mainly with diet. And they couldn't believe it. It's gone, except for one little small one that was still there. And I thought I'll knock that off pretty easily in my arrogance, because I've knocked off this bigger one. Anyway, a few months later, things happened in my life that became unpleasant for me, and I lost my composure and my happiness. And this little 4 mil tumor grew into this one you can see here. Next picture. And started to open up. Now, in January 2016, I said to my GP, I need some stuff that's going to cost me more than I have, because I can't work at the moment. And my insurance company tells me there's a small insurance, my super company tells me there's a small amount of super if 2 doctors sign to say I'm terminal. Well, my oncologist at the hospital already said I was terminal. My doctor said, yes, I'll sign that because I know what you're going to get most probably is expensive. It most probably will help you. So here's my signature. Go see your oncologist. So I did. And they said they had a look at the form, and they went away for 10 minutes and came back and said, you know what, we're not going to sign this. I said, why? You're just asking for your prognosis. In 2014, you said I had 6 to 12 months to live if I did nothing. I've done nothing. It's now January 2016. I should already be dead. Why can't you sign it? And he said, well, if we sign this, we believe we're going to, encourage you to seek alternative, useless natural therapies or internet protocols that are absolutely not going to work, and you're going to come back to us. It's going to be worse, and we're not going to sign it. We think it's immoral to sign it because it's just going to get worse, and we've contributed to your demise. I said, okay. So I drove home. I rang my GP. He was outraged. He said, come over straight away. I came over. He then rang up my oncologist, who he knows because their kids go to the same kindergarten. And he said, it doesn't matter. And there are expletives by my own doctor, who is normally very calm to other doctors. It doesn't effing matter what Michael uses the money for, whether it's for hookahs or cars. It's his money. Just stick by your prognosis. So he beat them down, and they said, get him to come in tomorrow. We'll have a look at it again. So I went in again, and the first time around I had 9 oncologists do rounds and examine me. This time there were 10. And I had to go through the 4-hour process, and in the end they said they can cure me. Oh, I said, well, you told me that a couple of years ago. Cure me, wonderful. What do you want me to do? I said, I'm thrilled. We're going to cut you open from here to here, here to here, here to here. We're going to be in hospital for 2 weeks. Then we're going to radiate. You're going to be home. Then you're going to be radiated. And this time there might be more radiation required. I said, a cure? I said, well, the average is 5 years, and we consider 5 years to be a cure. I said, what at 6 years? Well, you know the story. You know, you might not make 5 years. So I said, a cure to me means I'm not going to get the same cancer again for the rest of my life. Oh, no. Just, that, you might have a few more years. So, well, that's not a cure. Same story. So I said, well, regardless, can you sign this paperwork to give me a chance? Because I need some money to get some things that'll help me. They're all science-based. They're all, nothing airy-fairy, and they refused. My GP didn't give up. He got me onto another specialist who then referred me to another hospital and a team of oncologists. By this time, a professor, one of the senior people in Queensland at this hospital, had written a letter to my GP, 2 letters and 1 to myself, saying that I was engineering my disease so I can get into my super money. He said that they would not sign saying I was going to die, even though I'm going to die. He made 22 points of inaccuracy. He got I wish I was as young as he said. And he made mistake after mistake. He slandered me. He said this apparently intelligent gentleman who's been CEO of a number of companies is doing the most stupid things, using, unproven protocols, and you as a doctor are morally and most probably legally going to be in trouble for signing this document, And it was a whole lot of things threatening my doctor and myself. And it was a lot more unpleasant than I said. He sent a follow-up letter saying the same things because I had to be referred to another bunch of oncologists I'm allowed to get a second opinion. So this will be the 3rd time I'm going through the process at a different hospital. These people were much more professional. They were much more sympathetic. They wanted to sign the documents, but in Queensland, everything that's written about you comes up on the screen, and they didn't want to cross this particular professor. They said, he's written this. In our community, it'd be very bad for us to go against what he said, so we're not going to sign it either. So I was sort of stuck. And my GP didn't give up at this stage. The hole was getting bigger and bigger. And, I don't know if you can see that. You don't want to see it, most probably. And he got me onto palliative care, and that doctor immediately signed the paperwork saying I wasn't going to... He said the danger, do you know what the danger is? I said, yes, that it's going to eat in my carotid artery and I'm going to bleed out and die. He said, as long as you know that. I said, yeah, I understand that. So I couldn't, with all the things I tried, halt the progression. And it was really frustrating. In May 2016, I was lying in bed in the morning. I felt sort of cool and comfortable. There was a little bit of dampness around my neck because there were bandages on there. And I touched, and there was blood coming away from there, and I went into the bathroom and pulled the bandage off, and my carotid artery was bleeding out. So I clamped it down, got into emergency, and they looked at me, looked at this hole, maybe another picture, because the hole, I think it's this size hole that they looked at, yeah. And they could see into there, they could see the artery had been eaten by the cancer, and it has just deteriorated. And they got an ENT emergency surgeon to look at me as well, and they said, if we operate, we'll cut through your clavicle here, but we've got nothing to stitch up to. There's nothing we can do with this artery. It's just the cancer's right through it. And if we operate, you're going to bleed out on the table. You won't know what happened, you'll just most probably die. I said, if I do nothing? They said, well, you've got a few minutes to a few hours to tell your friends and family, because any moment now that's just going to burst. There's nothing we can do. Don't laugh, don't cough, don't move, because it's just going to pour out, and we'll just put you in a room. And they put me in a room where they put a catheter in my right arm to give me a needle, because when it starts to bleed out, they said this is sort of like easing the anxiety of death. So it's like a death needle. And they put me on morphine, 520 milligrams of morphine. For my weight, 540 milligrams is lethal. So 520, because they knew I was going to die any minute. They weren't too worried about this, wanted to make me comfortable. So, not to be blamed. So I didn't die that night. I didn't die the next day. And after 3 days, I thought, I've had this axe hanging over me. I know what people feel like on death row, because they're waiting for the death sentence. I'm waiting for the axe to fall, and it didn't fall. I had a very good palliative senior nurse that, because they put a bandage on that wound there, it wasn't a non-adhesive bandage. They didn't think they'd need to use it. They just put something on the artery just to stop it. Unfortunately, of course, it clots there, and you cannot pull it away. And there are all these bandages on top, and this bandage underneath they had to try and remove. So this poor nurse every day was reducing the size of it with shaking hands, but she knew if she pulled it wrong, it would just bleed out. But after 2 weeks, she got the last piece off. Great relief to everybody. They patched me up every day, and after a month, I was out of hospital. And a friend of mine, who's a well-known personality in northern New South Wales, who lives in Yukai, and I won't mention his name, said to me, come down, stay at my place. The energy is fantastic. It'll all be organic food. He said, if you're going to die, die here, or you're going to live here. And he had all the black towels ready, because when you bleed out, the black towels are the best thing. So it doesn't show up as much. So he also researched, he's a scientist and a doctor, but not of medicine, but almost. And he researched where he could find the best CBD, which is cannabinoid oil, and the best THC. And he found a supplier in Hallam and acquired that and started putting that into me. So I started taking drops under the tongue, morning, afternoon, and night. So something happened. Next picture. This wound kept growing. And you can see the purple inflammation. That spread down to my chest. Now, I had also seen for other doctors, so over 32 doctors, including the one from a Lambert that was visiting me every 10 days, and I had these wonderful nurses coming out to the house every day to change my bandages. That wound every day, I had to go into the shower before they came out and try and rinse it, which is agony. And then they try and clean it, which is agony. And the morphine, of course, makes you nauseous, constipated, and all other kinds of things that makes you pretty dopey and depressed. But I noticed this purple area, after 2 months of taking the oils, the purple area there underneath the wound, which had spread down to my chest, had stopped spreading and started to recede. It started coming back towards the wound. And I said to the nurse and the doctor, I'm healing. And they said, Michael, nobody's ever come back from a fungating tumour like this. Nobody. It's just, we were hanging up around the house kitty litter and stockings to absorb the smell of this thing. And having to live with it was a pain. And luckily, the CBD and THC allowed me to sleep at night, because otherwise I wouldn't be sleeping. So this is the wound as big as it got, and the inflammation was receding to the wound. The wound looks a lot cleaner, thank goodness to this nurse. And so it took up a large area. When it did this, the doctor who came out regularly said, okay, this is a huge wound. It's not going to close up naturally, or if it does, there'll be huge scarring. You won't be able to move your neck. So what we want to do is take a piece out of your butt and do a skin graft, because it's just too big to heal up. And I said, no. He said, why not? I said, well, when it heals up, if somebody cuddles me, they'll be kissing my butt. Sit right here. I said that to him as a joke to try and overcome the logic, because his logic was, this is not going to heal properly. And I had a feeling it would. Next one. So amazingly enough, that wound started to hypergranulate. And you can see the red areas there. So the top left started to close up, and all those red cells there, and then the bottom right, and then the top right, and then the bottom left, it all started to close up. And it closed up from that wound you saw before to nothing in 1 month, which they said, that's the top right-hand corner in 1 month. The doctor organised for me to have blood work, a scan, and an MRI in case it had gone to my brain. They're always very surprised that it hadn't gone metastasized the rest of my body, which is what they were expecting. And it didn't happen. So the scan came clear, the blood work came clear, the MRI came clear. And sorry, well, that's the sequence of events, I suppose, from that face to that face to that little room down the bottom. And is there one left with everything? That was it. Okay. So the one on the right there, top right there, when it closed up, I had that work done and it was all clear, except I was sitting in a pretty isolated place and I couldn't drive, could hardly walk 20 meters without a walking stick. But I wanted to get back because Steve had to go back to work, and I needed to be amongst family and friends, so I moved back to Brisbane. And what my campaign is now is, while I was in UK last year, I saw on the news a picture of a baby that was bright red and crying. It was a couple of months old. It was born with cancer, and they were radiating that child almost every day. It was in agony. And I thought, how primitive is this? How absolutely primitive. You know, I started researching heavily into CBD and THC and discovered what a lot of doctors don't know is that we have a second endocannabinoid system in our body. Our body is designed for hemp. It's designed to take hemp seed, hemp oil, or CBDs. There are receptors in our head called CB1s, in our body CB2s. They're all there waiting to have this as a food substance, which it used to be a long time ago, or a medicinal substance a long time ago. And so for certain conditions, you need both CBD and THC because they're synergistic. For some, you only need CBD, for some THC. So now I am campaigning and talking to politicians, talking to the media, talking to doctors, and I will be talking back to the oncologists that weren't supportive, and their letters are very damning that they sent me. In fact, it's against the law what they did. I want a meeting with them and want them to introduce CBD at least with their chemotherapy because it reduces the amount of illness from the chemotherapy, and try to open up their minds. If they don't give me that meeting, I'll just hand the letter over to the solicitors and they'll force a meeting, and because the hospital will be up for a fortune if they don't. I'm not interested in suing a hospital. I'm interested in getting this stuff into everybody's medical cabinet. CBD is so harmless. Yes, THC, you take too many drops, you'll get off your face. But if you do the right amount of drops, you won't get off your face. And so anybody who wants to get off their face today can go anywhere down the road and get some pot and smoke it. So what the hell? Why not give the CBD and the THC to the people who need it without making them criminals? So there's an international law says everybody's allowed to take the medication of their choosing, no matter what it is. That's international law. A lot of countries don't accept it. Australia now, due to Lucy and her husband, have got... Lucy Hallam has now got Dan's law in place federally. But the AFP aren't going to check out whether you're using cannabis or marijuana. It's down to the states. So in one state, I can take what I want completely legally. In another state, partially. In another state, okay. Of course, the ACT for my own use, I can do it as well. In other states, you're a criminal, which is ridiculous because you want to save your life of yourself, your family, or friends. So, from my own experience, now I'm taking too long, aren't I?
No, but you're getting towards the end.
I'm getting towards the end. Like I was really close to it a while back. So, the idea is that I wanted to thank the residents of Nimbin because this community have kept the plants growing, regardless of what's been burnt or what's been flooded, for so many decades. And without Nimbin, I don't think we'd be even where we are now today with CBD and THC. So the community of Nimbin in some ways have saved my life, and I thank you for that. Keep it going. Well done, well done. Regardless if you're using it for pot or for medicinal purposes, you've kept it going, and thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pointless question. I was going to ask Michael whether he'd been back to those doctors that were diagnosing him and telling him that there was nothing for him except radiation or chemotherapy. It's amazing how otherwise intelligent men and women can turn their back on something that's in front of them. And I remember saying to Professor Thompson in Sydney, when I showed him a photograph of a woman who had a lump on her breast, and she was told that she had to, by the surgeon, she had to take a breast off. And he said, you can't be too careful, you better take both breasts off. These bastards get paid by the chop. And she decided not to go. She had 2 weeks before she was due to go in. She heard about black salve or cannabis oil. She put that on this spot, on this lump on her breast. Underneath the skin, you could see the red traces where the black salve had actually gone out and found the satellite cells. Doctors have got no idea, they just cut around it and they hope they get it. This went down, it found the satellite cells, brought them back in. It killed the tumour. 10 days later it came off in the pad, left a pink, slight pink crater in her breast. 2 months later that was a slight discoloration of the skin. When I showed a photograph of this woman to Professor Thompson at the melanoma unit in Sydney, he struts around there like a god. I showed it to him, I said, doesn't it even pique your scientific curiosity that there's something out there can save women's breasts from the knife? And his reply was, I wanted to grab him and slap him. And it's not just, and we're up against that because the arrogance of the profession that says it's the only one. I think we're seeing that it's not the only one. We're seeing there are other ways to deal with it. And what they don't want you to do is take responsibility for your own health or the health of your children. We've seen here what happens when you do, when you've explored all the opportunities in the medical profession. I've had something similar, that fungated tumour. I had a huge one on my leg and I said, well, that's not going to get any better, is it? And they said, no, well, we can radiate it or chemotherapy. And I sent the chemo mob away and the radiation mob came back with some heavies. And I said, well, what are you going to give me? Another couple of months with a leg like that? And then a palliative care Irishman said, when I told him, he said, they've been up to see you yet. And I said, who's that? He said, the chemo and radiation mobs. I said, oh yeah, they've been in. The chemo lasted about 20 minutes. Radiation came, then had to come back with some heavies. And I said, look, I don't want to go down there. He said, oh, well, they had to come up and try and flog their wares. Flog their wares. Because they've got them, they've got to try and sell them and dump it on us. And I wasn't having any of it. And that's years ago. And recently, I've been back with, I went in to get what they call Keytruda for melanomas. It was the great drug for melanomas. I'm getting slightly off the program here, but the similarities are terrifying when you're up against, and 4 oncologists sitting there, and when they said I've got the extreme side effects, which included collapsed adrenals, reduced thyroid activity, and I said, whatever happened to first do no harm? That's supposedly what doctors have as their credo, first do no harm. I said, you guys may be the smartest guys in the room, but you're playing a very limited game. You've had chemotherapy and radiation for 35 years. This little dapper South African with a bow tie stepped up. He said, well, chemotherapy is virtually useless. I said, yeah, but that doesn't stop you bastards perpetrating it on all and sundry, making them as crook as rook when they want to get out of the game. What do you think about that? He said, well, I think it's unfortunate we have to do that. I said, I think it's fracking unconscionable. They just put their heads down, the 4 of them, and I said, I see. So that's what you're up against when you take on the system. But these brave men and women have done that and found a way through the process by finding in their hearts the faith that there's something else out there other than what's been on offer. I'll stop my rambling and we'll go on now with Michael. No, we're going to have Rebecca next up.
I'm back. I'm a partner of a veteran who deployed to Afghanistan in 2010 and upon return was diagnosed with conversion disorder, major depression disorder and post-traumatic stress. In the last 6 to 8 months, there's been a lot of talk about in the media about veterans and suicide and the one-size-fits-all approach of pharmaceuticals. But there's not a great deal of talk about the ripple on family and partners and their caregivers. And as a caregiver, I'm often asked the question, who cares for the caregiver? And I don't think the question is who, I think it's what. And I think the answer is cannabis. And for me, on the days when I have a lot of expectation that as a carer and as a partner, then I'm going to wake up every day coming from a place of love and patience. And that doesn't always happen when you have so many other things going on and so much fear and so much anger. And I use cannabis to help me get through the day and to come from a place of love and patience for my partner so that he can better manage himself. I certainly don't just stand for cannabis. Similar to the one-size-fits-all approach with pharmaceuticals, cannabis is not the only thing. And so I will show you a short video of some of the other things that we've found that have really given Michael and myself a much better quality of life, which is priceless in my eyes.
When Michael was first diagnosed with PTSD, it probably wasn't so much of a surprise because he returned home early from Afghanistan with what I knew to be trauma. In terms of the actual, what post-traumatic stress disorder was and all of the symptoms behind it and the dramatic effect it had on our lives, I had no concept of that in any way, shape or form.
So when I first got back from Afghanistan, a lot of my condition was actually physically manifested, so I suffered full body involuntary twitches. And then over time, as I did more work with the psychologists, the twitches reduced and I was more suffering from the psychological side of PTSD. I'd have mood swings, aggressive outbursts, suicidal tendencies. I became an alcoholic and I was prescribed a number of medications. I withdrew from not just my friends but my family as well.
The turning point for me was when I really started to notice that the doctor's so-called gold standard treatment was making Michael's condition far worse on an almost daily basis.
The treatment I was receiving, I also gained a lot of weight. The medications that I was put on turned me into a zombie. I was barely out of bed by sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I just started drinking because I wanted to feel something over the top of the zombie feeling. Which, again, the alcohol also made me gain weight and really caused tension in the relationship.
The gold standard treatment I thought was crap. It was not working. It made everything in our lives so much more difficult. So I decided that I needed to turn to, I needed to just do things myself. I needed to tell myself that I had this and I was able to help Michael and myself and save our relationship. The first thing I really turned to was diet. We changed all of our eating habits. He lost 30 kilos in a space of maybe about 3 months.
Nutrition and cannabis or medicinal cannabis were the first two things that we started with, and that's when I quit all my alcohol and also a lot of my psych medications, and during which time the cannabis actually gave me some form of relief from the withdrawal symptoms of those addictive substances.
So flotation was the next modality that we added. Once we got Michael into a tank, he was sold the very first time, which was really interesting because prior to that he was almost anti it, saying I'm not paying anyone to lie in a bathtub of water. And so to get him in a tank and to see literally the transformation in his face after 1 hour, it was incredible. You know, it was like I hadn't actually seen him smile for 5 years. You know, it was, he was the old Michael. He just looked so happy and healthy from 1 hour in the tank. So in 2013, Michael went on Trojan's Trek in South Australia. It's a peer-to-peer rehabilitation program designed for veterans, run by veterans. Michael, along with 11 other guys from a range of conflicts, went to Flinders Ranges and spent a week out there. The tools that he took back from that, the mental tools that he brought back, were amazing. As soon as he returned home from Trojan's Trek, he said to me, I need to help them now. I need to give back to them because it's all free of cost for veterans. So Michael, having already been involved with a fundraiser the year before, decided that he was going to take the reins and he was going to raise some money to go to Trojan's Trek. The very first year he raised about $5,000. The second year he raised about $12,500. And this year he had been asked to attend Trojan's Trek as a mentor. He's gone back to pass his knowledge on to other guys. And to me, that is just the most special thing, not only for him but for myself, because together we have done that. I knew all the things that was helping Michael. I was seeing the benefits that were helping Michael with all these other modalities, and obviously they helped me dramatically. Had Michael even decided to go, nope, I don't want to go with your treatment, I'm happy just taking my pills and staying in bed every day and drinking a bottle of scotch every night, we would not have lasted. I'm so grateful that he trusted me, that he wanted to learn and he wanted to change. He wanted to take control of his life. He didn't want to be depressed. And he certainly didn't want to dwell on the pain that he had experienced or the pain of losing a friend. And he certainly didn't want to make losing a friend in vain, by not living his own life to his potential. And he has so much potential.
Having a carer has been massively vital in terms of me coming to where I am now. Beck is probably the person that's actually saved my life.
Yoga, flotation, exercise, nutrition, everything. You use that with another natural modality that resonates with you, that you get benefit from, it will change your life.
Thanks, Rebecca. Talking earlier with Michael, he said that Weed Warrior, the concept is starting to spread now. Yep.
It sure is we have members all over Australia who we're helping out, and as well as internationally, which is wonderful.
Good work. Thank you. Next up, we've got Michael Lambert. Now, Michael was here also last year, and Michael had showed me the beautiful photo of his daughter. I don't know whether we have that here to show it. I've got it in here, mate. It's okay. Thank you.
Thanks for coming today. I'm a father of an epileptic daughter who's 5.5 years old, and her name's Caitlin, and she's been on medical cannabis now for 2.5 years, and she's doing extremely well on medical cannabis. And we've never been helped by the New South Wales government. As much as we've asked for help, they've never ever helped us. So we helped ourselves, and very glad we did, because if we'd waited and had more and more seizures, that's more and more brain damage. But what we first started using was just straight old hemp extract from overseas, just regular hemp extract. We bought it on the internet, it came through, we gave it to her, and it made a massive difference straight away to her quality of life and her seizures. And then we've improved on that over time. We've added now to the hemp extract, we've also added homegrown hash. So we just grow regular cannabis and we dry sift it, and we also give her THC every day, THCA as well as THC every day. So we just give her 2 hemp extracts, basically 2 cannabis extracts. One of them's hemp, one of them's regular cannabis. And just to give you an idea, we're talking about an amount of medicine that would fit on your thumbnail. It's a very small amount of medicine that we give her every day, twice a day. And we can actually make it ourselves at a very low cost. So that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to help myself, trying to avoid illegally importing it, and so I illegally grow it. And well, I've been prosecuted for that, and that's great. Yes. And I've been prosecuted for that. And this year I went to my local police and said, well, you know, my daughter's still got epilepsy, I'm growing cannabis this year. I told the inspector that because I thought I'd better tell one of the bosses, Bruce, and he has no problem with me growing cannabis. He just said, if anyone complains, we'll come and arrest you. I said, okay, well, and nobody's complained. So that's great. So they knew this year that we were growing cannabis, and I just said, stated the obvious, it's attempted murder if you come to our house, because now that they've arrested me once, they know the full case details about catastrophic epilepsy, and they know that if they come again, they can't plead the Nuremberg defence, which is, I was just following orders. That's actually not a defence. They have to consider your medical condition and make their decisions then, because they have the choice not to arrest you. So all I'm saying to all the families out there is, if you want to help yourself, do it, grow it. Don't wait for the government to help you, because they never will. Break the law, grow it, and maybe if you can't grow it yourself, find someone who can grow it for you. And just take action to protect yourself and your family. Now, you've recently heard that Greg Hunt has fast-tracked medical cannabis into Australia, and I found it on the website and I clicked on the links. They were trying to hide it from me, but I found it 2 days after they released it, and I rang Greg up and told him what a great guy he was. I actually got straight through. I went straight through to his office, can't believe it, someone answered, "Hi Ben, how you going? Thanks for the medical cannabis, it's only $140 a day." I just tell Greg Hunt how much I appreciate him getting in this cannabis that we can't afford. The only other problem is it's not the medicine we're using. It's just a single CBD product, and we're using whole hemp extract and hash. So Greg's managed to deliver around about 1% of the medical cannabis that people might need at an incredibly high price. When I say incredibly high, 25ml bottle is $875. I'm not kidding you, that's true. $875 from Tilray. It's $140 a day for her dose, and that is 5 to 10 times more than just illegally importing it from overseas anyway. So it's an absolute joke, and you can make your own medicine. Raw cannabis is very good for you, and even cooked and smoked and all the rest. There's a whole range of medicines out there, and Jenny uses all cooked versions of the medicine, where I'm using all raw versions of the medicine, but it's all medicine, and just find the one that works for you. So I just want to say, my beautiful 5.5-year-old daughter, who has catastrophic epilepsy, well, guess what? There's nothing wrong with her. She's at school. She's learning a hell of a lot. Now, she might take Vegemite cannabis sandwiches with you, but who wouldn't if they wanted to have a life? And there's not a damn thing the government can do. What are they going to do? Have a sniffer dog at the gate for Caitlin? Oh, did you bring cannabis today, Caitlin? You look illegally well, darling. Why aren't you having a seizure? Why have you stopped going to hospital by 90% since you've been on dangerous medical cannabis? I mean, our doctors will not write us a script. We've got a script once for a Schedule 4. He won't write it again because they got it wrong. They won't write us a Schedule 8 script. So all cannabis for us, as for my daughter, is Schedule 9, illegal, and we've got no problems with that. We'll keep breaking the law to save our daughter's life. So thanks very much for coming. Overgrown government, do not listen to them, just save yourselves.
Thank you, Michael. And now that leads to, where can you get it? Where do you get it? Jenny Hallam is a compassionate supplier. I'll let you tell her story.
If I can speak now after everybody else, thank you very much. I don't usually cry in public. I don't like to show weakness in front of this government. But unfortunately, you good guys all got me. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me be here. I think the message I'm trying to get across today is don't wait, which is the same thing that everybody else is saying. Don't wait. It doesn't matter that it's illegal, you're saving somebody's life. It doesn't matter what you're treating, whether it be cancer or epilepsy, MS, PTSD, whatever it is. Don't wait, because our lives are important and they're sacred, and we don't get a second chance. Once they're gone, they are gone. And I've seen too many people die very recently, and also over the time that I've been doing this. So I'll just recap for those of you who don't know me. My name's Jenny Hallam. I've been in the news quite a bit recently, I think. I think everyone's getting a little bit sick of seeing my face. I know I am. But unfortunately, we have to use whatever media we can and try and push this through, because education is the key to this. We need to educate all of the public. I mean, we have a great cannabis community that knows a lot, but unfortunately that isn't going to get it done. We need every single person in Australia knowing about the endocannabinoid system and how it works. We want it to be just second nature. We don't want it to be something that people go, the what? The endo what? And it goes what? And it does what? We want people to go, oh yeah, the endocannabinoid system, yeah, whatever, you know. That's what we want. That's got to be our aim. So it means educating everybody. My story started when I was 20 years old. I was involved in a car accident. I've actually had 5 over the years. I'm not a bad driver. None of them were my fault. I've been rear-ended twice while stationary, hit on the side, hit from the front, and I've also had a 40-foot pine tree drop on top of my car while I was driving along, which has left me with a serious pain condition, body-wide pain condition and nerve damage. So my resting pain level is probably about a 6 out of 10 on an average day. So I was on morphine for probably about 15 years, and OxyContin and the usual crap, injections of pethidine, and then just recently Lyrica, that wonderful drug Lyrica. Anyway, so I was getting sicker and sicker. I got down to 38 kilos. My doctor said, you're going to die. Your organs are about to shut down. There's nothing we can do. The stress and the pain, everything just wore away at your body, and it just left nothing behind. So you can't eat, you can't sleep, you're nauseous all the time. If you do eat, you vomit. You just feel horrific, just horrible. And a lot of people don't realise that pain can do that. Just pain alone can kill you. And those drugs can kill you as well. The morphine does horrific things to you. You know, people think it's helping them, they think it's helping the pain, but actually it damages your pain receptors and causes more pain after time. A lot of people don't realise that about morphine. They sort of, you know, a lot of people are scared to go off the morphine, but please get off of it. It's a dangerous, horrific drug. My side effects were really bad. They could never actually give me more than 30 milligrams twice a day of slow release, because any more than that, and I would rip my skin off. Literally rip my skin off because the itching was just so bad. And I would try and control it during the day by taking my mind off of it, and I would just rock constantly just to try and stop from ripping my skin off, basically. But at night you couldn't, and in my sleep I would scratch and I would wake up and I would be bleeding all over just because you couldn't stop. But that was the only thing that was working. The morphine was the only thing that helped with the pain. And then some friends came over. It was like to the point where that was it. I was going to die. We didn't know what else to do. And some friends came over and just said, hey, have a smoke of this. It'll make you feel better. And that was just smoking cannabis at the time. And I thought, okay, well, nothing else is working, might as well give it a go. And I'd smoked it when I was younger, so I knew it was okay. It wasn't going to kill me. So I thought, yeah, well, got nothing less to lose now. So I just had a smoke of cannabis at the time. And instantly, I felt better. Instantly. I could not believe how quickly it worked. Instantly, the nauseous feelings went away, and I ate a meal for the first time that day, a full meal, and actually kept it down. And that night I slept, and they left some behind because they sort of said, you'll want some more later. And they left some behind, and so that night I had a little bit more and had a sleep, and the next morning, or actually it was probably later the next day that I had a little bit more, and I got better. Like I started to get better. I started to put on weight again, and I got better and better, and I got a job and I started working. The doctor said, you're never going to work again. Yeah, bullshit. So I got a job and I started working, and I proved them wrong, and that was just smoking cannabis at the time. And then I found out about the whole oil thing, and I found out through the amazing, absolutely amazing Tony Bauer. It was probably about 10, 15 years ago, and I saw an article about him and I thought, wow, this guy's amazing. Wow, I didn't realise you could do that. And I contacted him and he spoke to me over email, and this was right at the beginning, and I think he had time to speak to people at then. And he spoke to me about it and he said, look, I can't help you personally, but make it yourself, it's easy. And I went, okay, no worries. And it took me a while to do it. It took me quite a long time to do it. But eventually I did. And some other mates sort of gave me some help and suggested a few things. And so within 5 months, I went off all my pharmaceutical medications. So the Lyrica was gone, the morphine was gone, and the Oxycontin was gone, and I was just using cannabis oil. And I actually got down to actually just using cannabis oil about every second day. I wasn't even using it every day. So, and I went off my antidepressants as well. And then I got better and better, and I just thought, this is amazing. And I put on a good amount of weight, and I was healthy, and I was happy, and everyone started noticing, and they started saying, wow, what are you doing? And I say, well, I'm using cannabis oil. And they go, ooh, but isn't that illegal? And I'd say, yeah, but I'm alive, aren't I? Because I wouldn't have been if I hadn't. I would have been dead. So I'd rather be illegally alive rather than legally dead. So, and they also went, hey, yeah, that's true. I went, yeah, it's smart too. So anyway, so then other people would say, well, can I have some? And I had like crap loads of it. Like I had a fair bit. So I said, yeah, all right. So I gave it to a friend, and then another friend, and then another friend, and then they all got better. And then their mates said, hey, what are you doing? And then they would say the same thing to them. And so word of mouth spread, and it sort of got a little bit out of control. So we'll get back to the story of January this year. I was probably helping about 120 people at the time. And police came to my home, and they walked to the door and they said, we've got a warrant to search the house. And I said, okay then, but before you come in, I need to let you know that there is cannabis and cannabis oil on the premises. And if you take anything today, and basically it's being used to help people that are sick and dying, and anything you take today could result in somebody's death. And they said, okay then, and they walked in the house and they took that cannabis oil and they took the cannabis. And it did result in somebody's death. A week ago, one of my close friends actually died, and that was her oil that was supposed to go to her that day. And it was probably a delay of about 3 to 4 weeks before I could get more to her, and that was just too much. And she didn't make it, but she did have a peaceful death, a beautiful death, which she wouldn't have had on morphine. And so I'm grateful for that, but it wasn't good enough. And so I blame those police that day, and what they're doing is illegal. What they're doing is criminal. By taking away medicine that's healing people. When doctors send you home and they tell you that there's nothing else that's going to work for you, you're going to die, so go home and spend time with your family, get your things in order, spend time, quality time. Righto, quality time on their drugs, on morphine, means just so spaced out off their faces that they can't interact with you. They just lie there, vegetables in the bed. They don't have quality of life before they die. Quality of life for people that are dying with cannabis oil
means they lie there, they're happy, they're healthy, well not healthy, but they're as healthy as they can be in that situation. They can react with their families and they can spend time with their families, and it actually extends their lives. Even if we can't get rid of the cancers, it can extend their lives. And that time is precious. It gives them time to spend with their families, to talk to their families, to organise them, organise their affairs. And we need to give them some quality of life at the end there. So it doesn't matter what we're trying to do, whether it be trying to help epilepsy, whether it be trying to save somebody with cancer, whether it be trying to give them just palliative care at the end. Cannabis oil works, we know that. And we have to fight for it. There's a lot of people that are hiding, that are using cannabis and they're hiding. And we've got to stop doing that. We've got to stop being embarrassed. We have this fear, it's like, oh yeah, we're using cannabis. We're stoners, we're stupid, and that's how we get treated. We're stoners, we're stupid. We're not stupid. There is a lot of really highly intelligent people that use and support cannabis. Highly intelligent, extremely smart, compassionate, wonderful people that use cannabis. And a lot of them are hiding because they're scared of what other people are going to say. They're scared they're going to lose their jobs, or they're scared that their family or their friends are going to say, oh no, you're just a stoner. And we've got to stop this. We've got to stop this. Why is it okay for people to get high from alcohol, but it's not okay for people to get high from cannabis? What is the difference? Why is it okay that we're allowed to smoke cigarettes that all basically they do is poison our bodies, and that's okay, the government allows that, but they won't allow us to have a plant that is saving our lives? There is something really wrong with this, and we have to stop accepting it and saying, oh yeah, because that's what the law is. Bullshit. Bullshit, it's not good enough. And unless everybody starts standing up and fighting for it, we're never going to get it. We're going to get this pharmaceutical crap version that they're trying to push down our throats. And I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. We need whole plant medicine, and we need home grow. We need access to home grow, because that's the only way that the average person is going to be able to afford it. Like Michael was saying, the Tilray product is expensive. The product that's just come in from Canada, Medican, I think this one is, the one that's just come in through WA. Steve Peake, one of the people that I've been helping, he spoke to me the other day. Now this is going to cost him, because the bottles that he would use are $365 for an 80ml bottle, and he would go through an 80ml bottle in 4 days. Okay, so how is the average person going to afford that? It's not going to be on the PBS, they've told us that, no PBS, right? The government isn't going to cover it, so they're going to give it to us, but no, they're not going to help us with it. This carrot that they keep dangling in front of us, this, medicinal cannabis is available. It's not available, stop believing it. All right, until it's in your hand and you're using it and you're better from it and it's a good product, it's not available. So we have to fight until that moment. So all these people up here that have come out and told their stories, this is what we need. We need more people like you do, more of you guys to do that. We need more people out there that are hiding it to come forward and say, yes, we're using it and we're not going to be scared anymore. In Queensland, this whole thing saying that children under 25 should not use THC, that is absolutely ridiculous. That means children will die. Children like Suli Peake will die. Children like Katrina Mosley's daughter, Caitlin, will die. This whole idea of THC being bad, I am so sick of this. Yes, you can get high from THC, but if you can also use THC responsibly and not have any psychoactive effects from it whatsoever. If you use a low responsible dose, you can still use THC and not have any effects whatsoever. I need to get this across to people. This misconception that that THC is bad and that you will get stoned from it, it's not true. Okay, so please, let's get this across. THC is something that is really important. It's really important. CBD has its place, THC has its place as well. But just because you use it does not mean you're going to get stoned. So we need to educate. We need to get the right information out there. We need to stop this bullshit, this stigma that's there. We need to basically get this done. And the only way we're going to get it done is for every single person to get up and start fighting for it. Stop leaving it to all these, individual families that have put their lives at risk because they have. All these people that have stood up in the media, they're basically a massive target now. So don't let these people do it all. Let's everybody stand up. Let's everybody do it together, because together we're unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable.
Well, following on with that, and just to get an indication, for you people out there, for what you've seen here today, is anyone out there prepared to stand up for cannabis oil? Just a few of you, eh? Oh, a few more. Good on you. Let's give them a hand. Thank you, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take you taking the fear out of the situation and supporting people like this who are living with the benefits of cannabis oil. And as I said earlier, it's a criminal conspiracy that's not allowing it to be legally available. I heard that Norfolk Island has been subsumed into Australia. It was a sovereign country, now it's part of Australia. I heard there's a consortium of the lawyers, doctors, or police, probably all, and politicians, all included, who are growing huge swathes of cannabis on Norfolk Island so that when it does become legal, they'll be part of the big pharma conspiracy. Now that's only hearsay, but it makes a lot of sense to me based on the skullduggerous duplicity that goes on, where anything that's beneficial to the community is not owned by big pharma. So please help me thank these people. Let me read their names first. Well, it's Lynn and Malcolm, their son from Tasmania. We've got Michael next door to them, Michael Stoopman. Then we've got Michelle next door. Then we've got Carol. And then we've got Michael. And then we've got Jenny again. And then, last but not least, we've got Rebecca. Would you please thank all of these girls? We've got a couple of roving mics down there. I'm sure some of you will have questions for our panel. Just before we do that, sometimes they're often forgotten, but Stuart over there on the desk, Wolf is his security, Pancho and Bob are on camera, so please give them a hand too. Okay, questions from the audience. Did I say that wrong? Questions from the audience? Oh,
yeah, we have one. Yeah. No, I've just heard this for the first time, although I've heard little bits, and I've spent 10 years in East Timor. But my feeling is that, okay, clearly there's something giantly wrong in the legal system, the management system of the whole planet to have such a beneficial thing illegal. And I'm just, I guess, wanting to ask if there is a feeling amongst the people here that there are various other things, the financial system, various other aspects, the education system, that are all totally wrong and must be fixed, that we have to stand up and fix ourselves.
We'll take that as a comment. Thanks for that. But we want to, and you're right, we all need to be part of that change. But we're dealing with cannabis oil today, and it would be good if we could just stick to that. But thanks for your statement, comment. Anyone else?
Hey guys. I just got a question of what you guys think, because of your personal experiences, when it comes to celebrities in pop culture and Australian media that do smoke weed, that say it on their their podcasts, or they say it to their friends, or you can see them backstage doing these things, whether they're bands, comedians, media personalities, that don't tell anyone that they smoke weed for fear of a conviction, which might be a $100 fine or something silly like that. Do you think maybe they should listen to your stories and I don't know, get involved, become some sort of, because even if a celebrity did get done for some sort of oil or smoking kind of deal, it would be high profile, and
That's something that I've been saying for a long time. It's time celebrities started to stand up and admit it, because they have a huge following, like a fan base that follows them. And so we need them to stand up, because then their fans will follow. You can see over in America when Jennifer Aniston came out and supported it, a massive amount of people then became supportive of cannabis. You know, because they see the everyday person, you know, or their, you know, the person that they sort of idolise. So, yeah, I think when we have people like Malcolm Turnbull, you know, and his wife with shares with pharmaceutical companies, that's where a lot of the problem is coming from. That's where, you know, a lot of the blocks are coming from. You know, we really need to find out who's got money where. But yes, we need celebrities to support it. We need them to stand up and start saying that, you know, that they use it and that they agree with it, and then we'll get a little bit more public support as well, and that would help.
Would you encourage everyday users like ourselves to like tweet them and kind of get them on our side, let them know as fans of whoever you like, whether it's a politician or a...
Yeah, get on, if you follow certain stars, you know, tweet them, get on social media and start saying, come on, support it, we want to hear you talk about it, and, you know, whatever. But, I mean, I know quite a few celebrities personally that I know use it, that I know support it, that have supported me personally and messaged me privately, but will not say anything publicly about it. And it's really frustrating, and I'm really annoyed with them, and I do let them know how annoyed I am with them. So, yeah, it's something we need.
Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm a registered nurse, or not a registered nurse, an enrolled nurse down in Victoria, and I've been a nurse here for quite some time, and I've just seen a lot of really bad cases of, say, MS, lots of Parkinson's. At the moment, I'm working in aged care, and a lot of people on Dilantin, Tegretol, really heavy seizure medications, things like that. And just a little while ago, I saw a video. It was called Driving with Captain something or other. He was an ex-police captain, and it showed the use of the cannabis oil, and he had really horrible. I don't know if anybody knows, like when people have Parkinson's, horrible shakes, can't talk, lots of different things affecting their nervous system. And I watched this video, and I found it pretty hard to believe. Like within 5 minutes after taking a couple of drops of the cannabis oil, he was talking, walking, asking the people if they wanted a cup of tea. It was insane. I couldn't believe it, really. And I'd just like for any of you who know anything about it to elaborate on Parkinson's.
My sister looks after a lot of people with dementia, and they have a lot of problems, including Parkinson's. So she has a business looking after elderly Australians. She says, whatever you do, don't go to a nursing home. But she's finding that keeping them at home, your elderly parents at home, and using cannabis oil every day is just good for them. And I think it's a very big area that elderly Australians should be taking cannabis oil every day, even before they get so ill that the family might consider putting them into a nursing home. But yeah, we're living longer. Our endocannabinoid system is not being looked after for longer and longer. We're getting more and more damage to our health. So if you've got an elderly Australian that you love, like my mum and dad, they take cannabis oil every day. My sisters do. The whole family takes it every day, really. But the older you get, I'm 45 now, it's time to take cannabis every day, really.
So, there's a message from our sponsors.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Michael.
And just going to the MS thing, we know cannabis works for a lot of the neurological diseases and the autoimmune diseases. Just basically, because I know I don't want to get into the technical side of it, and I'd like to explain that I don't know a lot of the technical side of it. I know just the layman sort of basic stuff. Basically, cannabis oil helps to stop the swelling, so it reduces the swelling on the brain, it reduces the swelling in the body, and that's why it works for a lot of the epilepsies. And that's what I find with a lot of the kids I'm helping with the epilepsy as well, is not only does it stop the seizures, but it brings the children back. It wakes them up. So it brings their personalities back, it makes them able to function again, it makes them able to go to school again, you know, to interact with their families. And one of the most common things, comments that I get from family of kids, these kids with epilepsy is, thank you for giving me my child back. I've had drawings from little kids saying, thank you for giving me my little brother back. You know, this is what it does. It doesn't just stop the seizures, it reduces the swelling, it brings the children back. And so that's what it does with a lot of these neurological diseases. I think it just reduces the swelling on the brain and just basically, you know, helps. But it stops the shaking. Parkinson's, you know, it helps Parkinson's, helps MS. Stiff person syndrome like Ben Oakley, you know, things that basically doctors have said before that nothing else works, and they give them these horrific drugs that don't do anything.
Thanks,
you know,
Jenny.
yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, look, we've only got time for one more question. Young lady down the front here. Is there a microphone in the vicinity?
Oh, microphone would be great,
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, can we bring the microphone down? Thank you, thank you. Two seconds.
Unfortunately, we have to make this the last question, but the panel will be around, and I'm sure they'll be only too happy to answer your questions personally after this. Thank you. This young lady.
Yeah, so thank you to everyone for sharing their lived experiences, because lived experiences really do change lives, as you all know. One of the comments was that to get more people to share their lived experiences to help, you know, raise awareness and all of the issues. But what platform, because I can see that some of you have gone directly to the media and others have produced, you know, films to share their lived experiences, but is there a platform where anyone that's sitting here that's wanting to participate and agrees that sharing their story is vital, how can they do it? Where should they go? Should they go to the Weeded Warrior website, or where's the good place for them to start to share their stories?
Well, I'd suggest you write to your local politicians, the Minister for Health. Just spend a couple of hours writing letters. They like letters, and emails they can brush. But letters are something physical they have to look at. It comes through your local police, anyone you can think of. That would be my take on it. Just send letters out, because you must lift the consciousness around this issue. And at the moment, the drug companies have got control of the consciousness raising, pun intended, facilities, which are the media. So it has to come from you, the individuals. And now that you've seen this, you're informed. So now that you're informed, you can get active. You can do it in whatever way you choose to. Tell your friends, but get those letters out there. Anyone else?
Yeah,
No,
I
Carol.
wouldn't mind making a comment, and I think everything you've said is absolutely right. Do all of the above, but a couple of points I want to make, and responding to the gentleman up the back. You know, a lot of people here believe that cannabis should be available to everyone, and I'm not going to argue with that. There is a problem with mixing up the messages between that access and medicinal cannabis. I mean, the government actually does believe that the medicinal cannabis movement is just a way to try and legalise marijuana. So it's a difficult one, but we've got to be aware of that. I do think that while we can all do individual things, there's got to be some way of uniting. I'm not sure what that way is yet. Maybe some of the people here can have some discussion about it. There needs to be a forum, and it also needs to have some credible people on it. I mean, I said I walk a fine line, but you need more people like me that actually come from those federal government committees and so on. More people like me that can be the interface, because, you know, sometimes I go to meetings and people, you know, they're just so far removed from from the reality here, that we've got to work on that. Epilepsy Action and a very newly formed Medicinal Cannabis Council are about to launch a podcast series on medicinal cannabis, and we'll be launching it in June, July. I'm going to think about whether or not we can get some sort of a forum or shared space where people can share as well.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Use your imagination, folks. You know, can I just ask for a show of hands if you've been affected by what you've seen here today? Okay. Well then, once you're informed, there is a responsibility associated with that. And it's not going to cost you to accost them, but they need to be accosted with the truth, the reality of what you've seen here today, because it's not getting out through other forms of media. So please, take that responsibility and work with it. It's been, again, another informative and heartfelt session for me. I think you've all enjoyed it. To all those who put it together, Michael Balderstone, all those warriors who have been fighting for years to get cannabis oil available for those who need it. A big hand to them and yourselves and the panel. Thanks very much. There's a quick comment just before we close.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the lady that, just one suggestion, there's a speak into the microphone. Medical Cannabis Association Australia online for any information, any testimonials about medical cannabis, and also it's common knowledge now that in hospices, pretty much, I know in New South Wales, that they're using medical cannabis for people to have an easier transition over.
Can I ask you, just hold that for a moment. Those of you with mobile phones that have got a notes section, would you like to get your mobile phones out? For those of you who might want to take that down, to give you access to that medical cannabis
Users Association.
Users Association.
Medical Cannabis Association Australia, it's online. You'll find them in cyberspace.
So what should people search for?
MCUA.
Yeah, that's the one.
MCUA.
MCUA.
That's the one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you very much, everybody.